Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to be doing all of the books that I read in 2024. This is every single book that I read this year. I do have one book that I'm still working on that I'm probably going to end up finishing tonight, but I wanted to get this video up. I will put that one in editing if I feel like it or if I finish it. Today we're going to talk about all of the 41 books that I read this year. I did have a reading goal of 65. I did not reach that, but this year was just the year for me to get back into reading and to love it again and to just find new genres, find what I like, and just to mood read. I definitely reread books that I read in the past. I just feel like I'm so much more back into reading than I was, and I'm so incredibly happy about it. So let's go ahead and just get started right on into it. Okay, so the first book that I read this year was actually Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. I did end up giving this book a 5 star. You're gonna hear about it way later whenever we get to House of Flame and Shadow. I love this series. I love everything about the series. A lot of people don't like this series and they don't like how it ended. I personally love it. It is one of my favorite Sarah J Maas series ever. I cannot tell you guys how much I just enjoyed this series. Like, I think it was so fun, the way it was written, the way the world is, and it's just so, it intertwines everything. So I do love ACOTAR. I love it very, very much. It is still my favorite series. Have been trying to read Throne of Glass, but I did Softy and F It this year. But this series, so good. It is my favorite series. This was the first book that I read this year. Then going on to a new author that I discovered this year is Kanitha P. It is Falling Off the Cliff. So this series is all about F1. I don't exactly remember like what this book entailed. I just really remember that the girl, I think she was like a PR manager, and she gets assigned to this one guy, Tiago, and he is the F1 like main guy. I loved this book. It was so much fun. The quotes in here, like the way that this book is written, was so magical. The quotes are my favorite thing about this book. There was one really big quote that I like almost memorized at the beginning of the year just because it was so good. All the stuff that you see on the cover, like, it ties into the series and it's just so freaking good. Like, this quote right here was so beautiful, so magical, and there's just so many quotes like that I'm just like, like, I really want to reread this book. Actually, I did give this book a 5 stars. It is one of my favorites of the year. So the next book that I read after this was Hot House Flower by Kristen Becker Ritchie. I just really wanted to read a part of the Addicted series, and Daisy and Reich are my favorite characters, so I was really just looking for a comfort read. I didn't want to read anything new because I was kind of in a book hangover after I read Falling Off the Cliff and Crescent City 2. I did give this book 4 stars upon the reread. I don't remember what I rated it the first time. It may have been a 3. I love this book. It's just so fun, and it was exactly what I needed. The next book that I read was a very disappointing read, and that is Never by Jessa Hastings. I gave this book a 2 stars. I had such high hopes for this book. I had gotten it for Christmas, and I was like, you know, I want to read it. For whatever reason, I have an obsession with Peter Pan and Wendy. I love the name Wendy. It is beautiful. I love the story of Peter Pan. I love, like, even the original story of Peter Pan and, like, Captain Hook, Tinkerbell, the Lost Boys. I love anything that has to do with that. I do not know why. It is just so magical, and I just love it so much. So this book follows the granddaughter, I guess, of Wendy. Yes, her grandmother is Wendy. They are called the Darling Girls, and every single 16th birthday the girls are taken away by Peter Pan to go to Neverland and just live there. And so Daphne is like, that's not gonna happen, Peter Pan, like, it's whatever, and she ends up being taken and she goes. My biggest gripe with this book was the way that it was written. It was Peter himself and, like, the characters. So you have Hook's son actually in this book, who is, I guess, supposed to be like the good guy, but he's still like the bad guy. And the thing that got me is, like, whenever you're in Neverland, you're in this like euphoric kind of state, and so, like, you can't really blame Wendy for the way that she's acting, but at the same time she's aware of what she's doing. She is aware of everything that's going on, and she does not care. And she, every single time that Peter Pan is rude to her, she still goes back to him. And even though she's like, oh, I should go off with, like, Hook's son or whatever, she doesn't. And it's just like, it was just really annoying because it was the same cycle about 50 different times, and, like, at some points you're like, oh my gosh, she's discovering that this is wrong, and then she just goes right back to doing what she did. I will be reading the second book. I don't know when the second book is coming out. I don't know if there really is a second book. I assume so because of the way that this book ended. I will be reading the second one. Hopefully it's way better than the first one, but I was really disappointed. Maybe in the second one we'll find out why Jessa wrote it like this, but as of right now, it is a 2 stars. I did not enjoy it, and I was really, really, really disappointed. After reading that, I picked up Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I tried to reread this one. No, this wasn't a reread, I don't know. I don't think it was. I think I was just trying to read it because this was the next one that I needed to read. I am gonna be so honest, guys. I've read up to Queen of Shadows in the whole entire Sarah J. Maas Throne of Glass series. I really do not remember anything from this series so far, which is why in the new year I am going to be rereading them. It says here that I rated it 5 stars. I don't really remember anything from it. I will be rereading it. This is the only series of Sarah J. Maas's that I have left that I really just need to like dive into. That is all I have to say about that one. So the next book I actually audiobooked, and that was Daisy Jones and the Six. I think I had just watched the show, or like a few months before I watched the show, and I was like, okay, I should read the book. And me and my fiance actually listened to the audiobook at the same time because we finished watching the show together, and it was so good. We were both so in love with it. I rated it a 4 stars. There's one thing I didn't like about it that I was like, this is gonna knock off a star for me. I really enjoyed the series, the show, and the book. So good. I loved it. The next book I read on my Kindle, and that was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I had so much fun reading this book. I remember loving it. I gave it a 4 stars. There was one really weird thing about it that I'm not gonna get into, but if you read the book, you know what I'm talking about. This was a really, really fun book. I read it on a trip, and it was like the perfect time to read the book because it was like in the middle of winter, and this book just gives winter vibes. I just loved it. It was a very, very good time. I'm really excited for more books that come out in the series by her. I am really excited to see like what she does and like the world that she builds with it. So the next book that I read was actually a reread, and I wanted to reread this entire series because again, I was really looking for comfort reads. I was looking for books that I knew that I loved, and so the next one is Magnolia Parks, the first one. I did annotate this one. I think this was the first time I read it, and then I just like went through it the second time. I rated this book 5 stars. I love this series. I love this universe. And of course, following Magnolia Parks, I read Daisy Hates. Again, I love this book. I love Daisy's books more than Magnolia, just a little bit, even though they both are 5-star books for me. I love Daisy. I love her character. I love Julian. I love this entire world. I love it so much. Going into April, the next book that I read was Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. This was just a fun early spring book that I was able to pick up. I rated it 4 stars. I do find that her books are a little short, which of course, like, they are short books. They are like 300 pages. They're just your quick and easy cowboy romance reads. I am just the type of girl who loves to dive into a character and loves to learn every little thing about them. But I do remember loving this book. I just wish that she had went into characters a little bit more. It definitely was better than Done and Dusted, which I did love Done and Dusted, but this one was like a step up. And then later on I'm going to talk about Lost and Lassoed. That one, so good. Anyways, we're talking about Swift and Saddled. 4 stars, loved it, easy read. If you're wanting just a quick cowboy romance, here's your girl. So after the little break from the Magnolia Parks universe, I went right back and read Magnolia Parks A Long Way Home. I really needed to get on this book, and I'm so happy that I read it. 5 stars. This entire series is 5 stars. I annotated the crap out of this one. This was probably my most heavily annotated book of the entire year. I love it so much. It was so good. The next book that I read is a part of a fantasy series that I was continuing from the previous year, and that is Lady of Shadows. This is part of the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa Roerich. The series is on KU. If you do have it, I would highly, highly, highly recommend picking it up. My goal for 2025 is to finish all of this series. It's pretty much like a high fantasy novel, but it's really good. It follows this girl, and you basically kind of like jump universes with her, but also she's a secret queen of one of these worlds. It's just really cool. It's really interesting. There's a lot of found family in it, and I would very highly recommend this book. I give this one a 4 stars. The next one I have is an Elsie Silver book, and that is Wild Love. I love, love, love this book. I gave it a 4 stars. This book follows this guy, Grant Woods. He owns a record label, and then he turns out to actually find out that he is a single dad, and so his daughter comes to live with them, but at the same time he just signed on a new artist, so the artist comes to stay in Rose Hill for a little bit, and you just get to see their dynamic and the dynamic with the daughter. It was just so, so, so sweet. It was so good. I love Elsie Silver's writing. I do think that her previous series, like Heartless and all that, is still my favorite series by her, but this one was really good. This book connects to those books, and so I really like that about it. I love it whenever series connects. It just ties everything together. And the next one that I read, which may surprise a few people, if you guys have watched any of my previous videos, you know I don't really like the off-campus series, but I have been picking up the Campus Diaries series. So this one is The Dixon Rule. This series is following the off-campus series Kids, and I will say, I do like the Campus Diary series more than I liked Off Campus. Wild. I did give this book a 3 stars. I don't remember exactly why it wasn't like a 4 or higher, but I do remember there being like some weird little parts in it. But again, I still love this series. I think it's very well done. I really like the Graham Effect. That one is one of my favorites. And I'm honestly so excited for the next one to come out. And then right after that, I read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is the 4th book in the Bridgerton series. I read this right before I watched the new season, and just going off what's in the book and what's in the show, I am kind of highly annoyed by the way that the show went. I will say I do love the show, but I also love the books. I do like how younger the characters are in the show and how it follows them like in real time, while like the books a few years will go by before like the next person's book is. So I do like that about the show, but I do think that the books are so good, and I really wish that there was this one little plot line that I feel like the show really missed out on from the books. But either way, I read the book 4 stars. I loved it. Penelope and Colin are not my favorites. They're just not my favorite characters. They're kind of boring to me. So yeah, hopefully the next one's really, really good. And I'm excited to see what the show does with Benedict's book, because Benedict's book is my favorite out of the entire series. The next 2 books were rereads. I am leaving one of them on the shelf, but that was the 4th Wing series. I read 4th Wing and Iron Flame again. I really want to reread 4th Wing and then go into Iron Flame right after that. So I read both of them at the same time, kind of. Both of them were 5 stars. I loved them. I cannot wait for the next one to come out. I'm showing up at the bookstore the morning that the book comes out. First thing in the morning, I'm buying it and I'm heading off to class because I'm literally so excited. Yeah, I read these 2 books. They're great. If you have not picked up on the series, you really need to. It is really good. I wouldn't say that the writing is like impeccable. I think that the plot really makes up for the writing though. The plot is so good. After I read those 2 books, I really just needed a fun and lighthearted romance. So the next book that I read was All My Kisses for You by Monica Murphy. This is a part of the Lancaster Prep Next Generation series, I think. Yes, the next generation of Lancaster Prep. This follows their kids. It's really good. The one thing about me is that I really don't remember a lot of what I read, and it really bothers me, and I know that it bothers you guys because I can't actually tell you like what the books are about. I'm sorry. I love this book. It was a very lighthearted read. I love the Lancaster Prep series. It is one of my favorite series ever. Right after that, I actually audiobooked Happy Place by Emily Henry. This book, it is nostalgia in a book. Like, if you're not nostalgic about your life, this book will make you nostalgic. It made me nostalgic for like in the moment of me reading the book. I was like, I'm feeling nostalgia about the fact that I'm never gonna read this book for the first time again. It was just so good. I love this book. Everybody needs to read this book. I really need to pick up more Emily Henry books, and I do know that, but this one was so good. I rated this one a 5 stars as well. And then the next book that I read after that, I read on my Kindle, and that was I'll Always Be With You by Monica Murphy. This is a part of the first Lancaster Prep series. It is, I think, my favorite one because of the way that the characters don't really get like a super happy ending. Just the way that these characters are, like if you are wanting a really slow burn or like a really slow burn to a happy ending, read this book. It is so good. It's about this ballerina who lives in London or Paris her entire life pretty much, and then she gets sent to go to Lancaster Prep in New York. She meets this guy while she was still in Paris. She comes back home and realizes, oh my gosh, he goes to the school, and they kind of are rivals even though he's like head over heels for her. Like he's in love with her and she wants nothing to do with him. It is so good. It is Golden Retriever Boy and Black Cat Girl to the max. So good. Love this book. I rate it at 5 stars. It is one of my favorites of this entire series. Next one that I read after that was on my Kindle, and I do not know why I just did not DNF this book, and that was Night Shift by Annie Crown. Hated this book, rated it a 1 star. There was nothing that I liked about this book. If I could rate it a 0, I would. I have nothing else to say. Did not enjoy it. Was not for me. So the next books that I read were actually all part 1 series, and I read these books back to back to back. Actually tried to read them 4 years ago, hated them in the moment, and then upon rereading them, I was like, wow, I don't know why I hated these books. These were so good. And that is the Cruel Prince trilogy by Holly Black. These books are so good, guys. If you were like me and you weren't sure if you liked them or weren't sure if you were like, I don't really like them, try to reread them again because they are so good. I rated the first one a 4 stars and then the last 2 a 5 stars. The way that these were marketed made me, I think, not really like them because they were marketed as like super heavy on romantasy, and then they weren't, and that's why I didn't like it, because I'm like, oh, like this is not what I was looking for. But like whenever I went into it knowing like, okay, they're not super romantasy, it's just really you following the plot, I loved it so much more. I had such more of an open mind, and the plot's actually so freaking good. Like, guys, this book series, so good. You need to read it. It's a 5-star series for me. And then after that, the next book of the Full Throttle series actually came out, and it was Chasing the Slipstream. I read this one immediately, bought it immediately. I needed to have it, but I was so incredibly disappointed with this book. The way that the first one was so magical, had so many great quotes, was just like such a feel-good book, and the characters were so deep. This book did not give me any of that. There was no quotes that stuck out to me. The characters didn't really stick out to me, and I was highly disappointed with this book. I was so sad because I was looking forward to it so much. I rated it like a 2.5, 3 stars. Just wasn't my favorite. I will be reading the next one, but this one was a huge disappointment for me. So after that, I actually picked up this fiction book, Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. This became one of my favorite books of the entire year. This was a 5-star read for me. I cannot even begin to describe this book to you guys. It is about this woman. She goes, and after university, after her undergrad, she moves to London, goes to get her graduate degree, and in the first chapter, you're finding out she's like admitting herself into a psych ward, and you're just like, what the heck happened? And you get to follow exactly what happened to her and made her go into that, and you get to follow like her romance life of, okay, should I be dating this guy? Should I not be dating this guy? You get to find out how their relationship was, and it really touches on a lot of subjects. It touches on SA, it touches on loss of a child, it touches on friendships so much, and family relationships, and just the way that you allow yourself to be loved. It says a lot about you, and that's really what this book like shows. And it shows so much hurt, but it shows so much depth. Barely 400 pages, or like right under 300 pages. This really proves that you don't need a long book to really go deep into a character. Like, you can just do it under 300 pages. And I just loved this book so incredibly much. If you're wanting a book that just like really goes into things, pick up this book. So good. I loved it. So sorry about all the lighting changes. I have no idea what's going on. The next book that I read, I actually went back and picked up Magnolia Parks. So I read Daisy Hates the Great Undoing. This was a 5-star book. The cliffhanger that this book lands on, though, I need the next Daisy Hates book now. I need it today. I needed it yesterday. I needed it 4 months ago. I needed it like 365 days ago, because the way that this book had me literally crying. Oh my gosh. I can't even begin to describe how I felt about this book, guys. It was just so good. After I read that, I was like, you know, I need a fun read. Fun little romance that's not gonna make me sob my eyes out. So I picked up Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. Weston Belmont, so good. Skylar, amazing. Love her. Like, I just loved these books so incredibly much. They were so good. The way that he pines for her, the way that she grows. I gave this book a 5 stars just because the character growth in this book was so phenomenally done. I loved it so much. I love this entire series, and I honestly cannot wait for the last one to come out. I'm actually gonna cry. I'm very excited for it to come out because the way that this book ended and like everything about this book, I love it so much. After that, I went to my Kindle and I actually read Falling by Janisha Boswell. This is the first book in the North University series. It's about an ice skater and a hockey player, and at this time I was like, you know, I really want to go to hockey romance. So I searched it up on Pinterest, found this book, read it, gave it a 5 stars. It was just so incredibly good. It was just a fun time. I don't really necessarily think it, like looking back, it's a 5-star now. It probably is like a 4.5, but like it was just such a fun time. And like, again, this year I wasn't super strict about like what's a 5-star. Is it because it's written so well, or is it because of the experience? And my rating system really just goes off about the experience that I had reading it. If I put down the book 5 million times and read books in between it most likely was not a 5-star. It was more like a 3, just because the reading experience was not that great. But this reading experience, it just went by so fast. I flew through this book. It was just so good, and I loved every single piece of it. We are now in October, getting down to the last few books. The next series I read was another fantasy series that I've been meaning to read for a really long time, and that is the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts. Let's just say I need Fearless right now. I rated these books a 5 stars. I loved them. They were so good. I love Peyton and Kai so much. I love their dynamic. I love everything about them. I really enjoyed these books, especially Powerful. Like, I even rated Powerful, I think, like a 4, because it had me sobbing. Because why did Lauren do that to her? Like, she did not deserve that whatsoever. But so far, this series is so good, and I'm actually scared of how she's gonna end off this series. Why is it like this right now? Why do I have to wait till April? That's another series that if you have not read it yet, you need to have read it like yesterday, because it's so good. Like, it should be on your 2025 TBR immediate reads. The next book that I read after coming off of Powerless, I was highly disappointed with this book, and that is Daydreaming by Hannah Grace. I love Maple Hills, like the whole entire series. Wildfire is my favorite one. This one just did not do it for me. It was not what I thought it was going to be. It's not what I expected, and it's really just not my favorite at all. I just remember this book being like very mediocre. I didn't really love the characters. I just felt like the situation that they were in was also very odd. Like, it just wasn't my favorite, and it's not one that I would reread. It was okay. I mean, I gave it a 3 stars. There was a few moments in here where I was like, oh, that's so sweet, and like her growth, like the girl's growth, was amazing. But I don't know. I don't think I really liked Henry as a character, though. I felt like he was just, like, I don't know. I really want to like him. Henry's a very complicated character, and I can't say that, like, oh, I just didn't like him at all, because, like, I know that people really connected to him. I just didn't. But I did connect to her. She was great. I loved her. So, yeah, I gave it a 3 stars. I was really disappointed just because I loved the rest of the series. The next 2 that I read were books that I also should have just not have read or DNF just because they weren't my favorite. The first one is Promise Me Not by Megan Brandy. This is the second book of Say You Swear. It's the second book of the Boys of Avix series. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite. I gave it a 3 stars. It wasn't super memorable. The next one is Wicked Sir by Grace Riley. This is the 4th book on Beyond the Play, which I did pick it up on the 4th book of the series, so maybe that's why I didn't really connect with the characters that much. I gave it a 3 stars. Didn't really love it. Not memorable. I really don't remember anything from this book, so it got a 3 stars. The next book was honestly one of the best books that I read this entire year, and that is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas. I honestly flew through this book. This book is like 900 pages long. I went through it like that. I loved this book. It was so good. The ending was so well done. The way that the series is tied up, I loved every little piece of it. It is one of my favorite series by Sarah J Maas. I know a lot of people did not love the ending of this book. I know a lot of people did not love the way it ended off and like how things are now. I love it. It is my favorite thing. I love the series. I love the characters. The way that this book just ended was so beautiful. The writing in it, it was just so much fun. Just dived into the entire world. The way that the world is set up was so cool. I gave it a 5 stars. Easy 6 stars for me. Loved it. The next one that I read was Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book of the Rebel Roo Ranch series. I gave this one a 4 stars. I love this book. I thought it dived deep into the characters more than the other 2 books did. I just really enjoyed this book of the series. I think that the characters have grown so much. I love Gus and Teddy so much. Like, this is the book that I have been waiting for, and then the cliffhanger that it ends off of for the next one that's coming out. Are you joking? I need that book now. So good. I got a 4 stars. I loved it. The next one that I read was a part of the Lancaster Prep Next Generation series, and that is Keep Me in Your Heart. I gave this one a 3.5. I really enjoyed it. It was just so much fun. Majority of this book really takes place during Thanksgiving break, and I honestly really like that. It wasn't like over the span of months, like kind of everything happened at once, but it was honestly a lot of fun, and I felt like that was really realistic for this story. So Arabella and Rowan are kind of like rivals, like they don't really like each other. He doesn't really like her because he thinks that she's stuck up, whenever in reality she's just lonely, so she wants attention, and she's very aware of that. She's gonna stay at Lancaster Prep during Thanksgiving, and Roman's like, no, like, come home with me. They kind of start to become friends, and everything happens during that time. I think the only turnoff for this book for me was just how self-aware Arabella was. I feel like that was really unrealistic for an 18-year-old. I did really enjoy this book. It was just super fun. It was a quick and easy read, and I loved it. The next book that I read was a very disappointing read, and that was All the Stars Are Dying by Chloe Penaranda. I do have a special edition of it on my shelf up here, and I bought it because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna read it and it's gonna be pretty, and it has to be a good book because it's pretty. You can't judge books by their covers, guys, no matter how pretty they are. I gave this book a 2 stars. It was not good. The way that the world is just like kind of thrown at you and there's no explanation really threw me off. The characters really threw me off. The guy character is so back and forth, and I hate it whenever characters are back and forth. Like, you're either one way or you're not. You can't be switching between the two, making me like you and then making me hate you within the same page. I gave it a 2 stars. I may read the second one. I kind of want to see where it goes, but also at the same time, is it worth the energy? I do not know. Alright guys, and then the last 2 books that I have for you are my favorite books this entire year. They are my favorites. I know I just talked about all these books of being like, oh, I love this one. Oh, I love this one. Looking back, there was no other book that could compare to this series, and that is the Bridge Kingdom series. I am currently on the 3rd one. I read the Bridge Kingdom, the first one, within 3 days. Traitor Queen, the second one, I read it in a 24-hour period. The only reason I have not finished that 3rd one is because Christmas happened, and then I just got super busy with all of that kind of stuff. But this series is so good. So in the Bridge Kingdom, you are following Laura. Laura is sent off to be the spy queen of Ithaca. She is to marry their king Aaron to create this peace treaty. But what Aaron doesn't know is that she sent her to be his spy, basically, or like the spy of the kingdom for her father, because she was trained as a warrior princess, but Aaron does not know this. Oh my goodness, guys, the fighting, but the love in this book, the way that the world is built, the way that the friendships form, and then you get to see everything tear down in the second book and then rebuild back up. So incredibly good. I love this series so much. It is a 5-star series. The only way that I can explain how much I love this series is by like comparing it to ACOTAR. I love the ACOTAR books so incredibly much. The way that I felt for those books, the way that I sobbed for those characters is the same exact way that I felt for the Bridge Kingdom. Like how I felt for ACOTAR, I feel the same exact way for the Bridge Kingdom. This is like the first book in a while that has made me like cry and made me be like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So incredibly good. I cannot wait to finish this series. It is a 6-book series. I'm currently on the 3rd one. The 4th one comes out in January, and the 5th one comes out in April. You need to pick up this series in 2025. And plus, the covers are extremely beautiful. Like, why aren't you reading them yet? Because they need to go on your TBR. They are so incredibly good, and it makes me really sad that I will never be able to read these books again for the first time. I'm definitely rereading them because I want to annotate them now, but like I will never read them for the first time again, and that makes me so sad. Yeah, these are the last books I read of 2024. Both 5-star. Like, they're 7-star books for me. They are 10-star books for me. Like, they are comparable to ACOTAR for me. They are so incredibly good. Those are all of the books that I read in 2024. I am really excited for 2025. If you guys want me to do a 2025 TBR, let me know, because I am slowly putting that together. There's at least 10 books that I will for sure be reading this year. That's like on my TBR. This year, I also plan, this following year, in 2025, I also really just plan to get down my physical TBR, which I feel like I did quite a bit of this year. I am very thankful, and I'm really happy with all the fantasy books I read this year. I feel like fantasy is slowly becoming my genre that I'm like diving straight into and reading every single book of. But yeah, those are all the books I read. Let me know what your top 4 or 5 books are from this year. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. I love you all, and goodbye.